Warning: the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and/or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman featuring Bones. Catch us on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, Stream, and everywhere else you catch your podcasts. And of course, WLFE-DB.com. Now, from the backwoods of southeast Arkansas, right beside the Bayou Bartholomew, the longest bayou on the planet, broadcasting from downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, here is your host, Len Dorman.
All right, here we are. We're here on Thursday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, on WLFE-DB. We are live. We will be bringing our guest out in just a second. I just thought to tell you, right at the beginning there, I had a serious internet burp. Whoa. I could trying to go live, and it wouldn't go. That's all I need today, internet issues. I guess we got a new internet connection here, and it seems to be affected by the weather. It seems to be when it gets cold, the internet slows down. So I'm hoping we can get through the show tonight without any serious issues. But for now, we're going to bring on our guest. I'm sure a lot of people know him. They love him. He is the myth, the legend, the man himself, Greg Koss. Here we go, and we're going to add him in right now.
It's unbelievable. That's just unbelievable introduction there, Len. I don't know about the man, the myth, the legend. I don't ride a white horse. Maybe
I don't ride horses at all.
That's been a long time for me, so a long time ago that I did that, but it's great to be on your show.
I'm honored to have you here. I sorry about the issue to start with, but I hit the start broadcast and it didn't start, and so I had to click it about 3 times to get it started, and either StreamYards or my internet connection had an issue because it all of a sudden said a little button that said can't get on the internet. And I said, well, that's kind of weird because I could still see you in the green room.
Well, go ahead.
If I had lost total internet connection, I wouldn't see you. Your picture would have been at least frozen. But you were not frozen in the green room. So this technology is beyond me. I'm too old to figure it out.
No, that's the same thing. You know, it's every once in a while you get a hiccup or something like that happens. And I know a lot of strange things happen when you go ahead and you change your backgrounds and you do a lot of stuff on StreamYard with the banners and then the other stuff above it. Because on my show, everything's brand new for this year. And Nick Sarlo is the one that changed it all around.
Okay.
So I've had 2 shows, and I've been having a hell of a time trying to remember which ones to hit, you know, and it's like, it ain't rocket science, but you know, it comes close to it for me. I can say that.
Yes, it does.
You know,
I'm still getting used to all the buttons and what all it does here. This is, to me, this is amazing technology because the first few years I was on a computer in college was before Windows 95.
Well, you were young enough then. You see, I was at the first year I went to college. They had a course that was called data processing.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really have any computers in the school. And the school was brand new. It was down in Palatine, Illinois. It was called Harper College. And there were only 2 buildings. We had to actually go to school in the high schools for college. They had classrooms at the end. They had night classes, basically. you couldn't do any day classes because the buildings weren't built.
Wow.
And now Harper College is the size of a university. It's got so many buildings on it, so.
Yeah, the school I went to was it was a technical school, technical college. No, they didn't have the word college, a technical school for adults, of course. And they later built a huge library and to get the college name in their name and apply for that. Columbus College wanted to go for Columbus State University, so they went for that at the same time. So they both changed their names at the same time. Now I went to Troy, with the actual home base is, of course, Troy, Alabama. But where I went to school was Building 4 in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh wow!
I went actually did I did 3 years and 1/4 is what it took me to get a 4-year degree there, and I was there with 99.9% military and military dependents. Very few wives. It was mostly enlisted, a few officers. I was there with the management club there, and the lady who ran that was a captain. And come to find out that she could not talk in public very well. She couldn't handle what me and you are doing right now. And she could not handle media. And we had an author there that was wanting to talk about his book and how to do what his book was saying, explaining that. And just out of the bloom, she said, "Lynn, go over there and talk to the media." So there I was doing an interview for the local newspaper and a couple other media people. Just out of the blue, I had not prepared. I didn't know if I was going to do this, and I said, "What am I doing?" So that's one reason I wanted to go ahead and get in this show gig, because I'm fairly used to now to talking to people. But enough about me. What I want to talk about is start from kind of the beginning. What got you into the paranormal?
I was about 10 years old. My mother had polio. I was raised by my grandmother. We were on an outing out at Gettysburg. And I can remember we got out of the car. We pulled into where the battlefields supposedly were. We pulled into a place. It had like a picket fence in front of it. And we got out, and there was one of those information things that was in front of us that told us about what had happened there. I couldn't remember any of it. I remember that what happened was it had to deal with the wind. And every time the wind would go or come in, a breeze, the sound would come too. And it was everything all the way down the line, everything that you can imagine that goes on in a battle, we were hearing. Not just me, my whole entire, my father, my grandmother, my uncle, and my sister. And it was gunshots. It was gunshots. It was cannons. It was horses screaming. It was pistols. It was, and some of the shots or the explosions, like the difference between a cannon would be sort of out a little bit. And then the grape shot, or those cannons that would explode above you.
Right.
You could pretty much look up, and that would be the direction that they were coming from.
Wow.
Like it was weird. It was like Twilight Zone. So that carried me. I remember I talked to Mark Nesbitt about this, and he's the big Gettysburg guy. He's the man that wrote all the books, and he has his own tour business there and that. And I talked to him quite a few years ago, and then I had him on my show this last season, and we talked about it quite a bit. And I said that when I saw it, that was like in 1959. So the part that comes into play here is the fact that even back then, they didn't have any reenactments in 59. They had nothing like that. And all the people that had heard my story of what I was talking about thought right away that would have been the case, that somewhere it's recorded. And he said to me that after I talked to Mark about it, he said that my witnessing of what I remember was one of the earliest witnesses that happened at Gettysburg that was actually, recorded. Yet the park didn't do it. It was when I talked to Mark, and he said, well, I've done all the investigating off of all the eyewitness accounts. He says, but yours is one of two or three of the first ones that was never recorded. So it was pretty neat. I remember getting ready to leave. I had no idea where I was at the park. Okay, as a kid. I remember being told that I couldn't mention this to anybody, especially when we got home, because, they would think I was a fruitcake or a nut or something like that, So it was like, okay. And, I would always push the limit, but then I would always get told, don't ever do that again, So it went from that. I can remember being in the military and that I was at Polk in Louisiana, and then from Louisiana I went to Rucker in Alabama for aviation, and then I was gone. And I can remember going through a lot of soul searching and a lot of things that happened when I was in Thailand and Vietnam. And by the time I came home, I had more questions than I had before I left. And a lot of them had to do with us, our frailty. Do I want to have any more friends? Because over there, you didn't want to have friends. You didn't want to get close to anybody because you didn't know what was going to happen. So I started getting into UFOs when I was still in high school. When I went to college in the UP of Michigan. So I was way up in Houghton and Hancock. And there was a doctor up there, a professor up there by the name of Alan Heinrich, who was basically Project Blue Book, post Project Blue Book. And he was a professor up there. And we used to party. I'd been partying with that guy when he was still alive. He was a great drinker and used to have a lot of unbelievable stories. But there were things there too that were going on when I was up there, because there were these mines that went down 8, 9, 10 miles down below the surface. There were copper mines. So that whole entire area up there is like, it's honeycombed with these mine caverns. And right. We would go and we would sit on the edges of it and drink, and then you would take your coffee, your beer can, and throw it down, and you would just listen to it cling and clang and cling and clang until you couldn't hear it cling and clang anymore. So it would, and then you would hear things, you would hear sounds, you would hear voices and things like that. And I'd never, I'm going, man, you got to quit drinking that lousy beer. and start drinking something good, because obviously, it's no good. But and it carried me, and then it took me later on, and we started going. We were going into northern Wisconsin quite a bit when I was a kid, and then as we got older, I still went and I still fished. So I fished a lot of muskies, and I was up in northern Wisconsin all the time. And there were a whole bunch of stories up there of things that happened. And we happened to stay at a resort from that particular time until this last season. We stayed at the same place. We're like the fourth generation of my wife's family. Her grandfather used to take the Chicago Northwestern train all the way up to that location. And they had a big, giant lodge that was built by this guy. His name was Harry Starr. And he built the lodge. He had the logging mill. And on his wedding day, he had to go down to the mill first thing. It wasn't even daylight yet. It was very early in the morning to check something out. And on that particular morning, he lost his head in a logging accident in the mill. So Harry's still there. So you hear all these stories. The one guy from Southtown Economist, south side of Chicago. His name was Tom Hollitz. He was a newspaper writer, and he wrote stories, campfire stories and ghost stories. And then he moved up to Boulder Junction, and he would tell these stories. He would write the stories, and he had the book of them, of what happened up there. And one of the stories involved the place that we were staying. And, everybody knew, but nobody would say anything about it. That same scenario. And I was still really young, and I was still a drinker, and I had a young family. I had a wife, and I had 3 little kids, and we would camp. But then the weather turned bad this one trip, so we stayed at the lodge upstairs. There were like 7 or 8 bedrooms up there. All they were was a bed and a chair. And then the bathrooms were at the end of the hall. And back in the day when that was the place to stay, way back in the early 1900s, when you went to go in your room, you left your shoes outside the door. So this is going to apply to the story a little later on. But anyway, I came out of the room one night. I was hungover, and I had to go like a racehorse. And I went down the hallway, and I had to go by the stairway that went down to downstairs, and it was a spiral staircase, so you could see down. And there was what I thought was a player piano, and they have 2 pianos still there to this day. Well, I noticed that somebody, and I thought right away, somebody had cranked the piano up, and it was still playing. When I went to the bathroom, I was like, what the heck is, this is stupid. And I looked down the stairs, and I could see the pedals going up and down. And that was it. I went to bed. And it wasn't until 5 years later, I'm talking to the owner. And now the owner's changed hands. It was his first year that had happened, but the owner was the same owner young owner and his sister from back then all the way to last year. And I approached him, and I said, we started talking about this Tom Hollitz and his stories of the North Woods. And I said, they mentioned the lodge. and everything. And he said, yeah. And I says, is there any truth to this story? And he looked at me and he says, you mean Harry? And I said, yeah, Harry. So at that very moment, I started on this trip. So every year from that point on, I would investigate on my own in the lodge at night, because hardly anybody stayed there. It would usually be people commuting or something like that. They just needed a room for the night. So there was nobody really in there. So I had the whole upstairs and downstairs basically to myself a majority of the time. And Harry, I started getting a relationship with Harry. And I would ask questions. And I was at the point 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, I think it was, where I had finally got to him to communicate back to me. After all those years of just going in there and talking and saying, hey, can you move this? Can you do this? Can I have a knock? All that kind of stuff. But then I started coming, I started taking my spirit box up. Last 3 years, I was doing Estes methods in the lodge at night, 10:30. Every once in a while, somebody would walk through and I'd have somebody, usually one of my sons, videotaping me. And, I've got blinders on and I've got headphones and, and they just look, you could see him later on. He would turn the video camera on to him and their eyes were bugging out of their heads because they couldn't figure out what I was doing, so, but it came to find out that the reason he lost his head that morning was because he had a hernia. And evidently he was trying to duck and get away from a log that was moving on the chains, and he couldn't do it. So he died. So, that he's there. A lot of people have run into him. I've seen him up in the window one year. Big handlebar mustache, black handlebar mustache, white shirt, and like a black vest. And the year I saw him, I knew everybody that was at the lodge, and they had a big family reunion. And there were tons of people. And I knew almost all those people from all those years they've been there. And I said, this is some new guy, so I looked around and went around, and I went back in and talked to Bill later on, the owner. And I says, I saw this guy up in the window, and I described him, and he says, well, that was Harry. So with that, I just went ahead and I said, wow, that's pretty cool. But he's buried up there supposedly, but somebody else told me that they had moved his casket out west somewhere. But he is in the cemetery up there, and it sounds like they're going to tear the place down, the lodge. Some guy bought the whole resort. He's going to demolish all the cabins, and he's going to put up a house for his daughter. And it's going to be this huge house. And he says he doesn't even want the lodge. And the owner, once again, is a member of the community, and he's sick about it. And the only thing I could say on that idea, and I'm bouncing around a lot, I know, and I apologize for that, but he went ahead and said, he mentioned that to me. And the other night, on what I've been talking about on my show now for the last week or so, 2 weeks, has been about Waverly Hills and what's going on out there. And, everybody in the community knows what's happening there. And, the chances are that could be the same thing that's going to happen out there too, because some developers are going to go ahead and just grab that land and knock that building down and put up some houses or something. So that's where I'm at with this, because I'm still sick for my location, because I would muskie fish and then I would go in there late at night and I would have a blast, And that's where a lot of my education about myself, as far as my discipline's concerned, with some of the instruments that we use on investigation, comes in. And I took the time to go ahead and make sure I was doing everything right, especially with the spirit box. Because there's a lot of people that, they have it in their equipment and they don't treat it right. It was explained to me that last GhostCon when I met that gentleman I mentioned to you earlier, Jeff Resman, about what he does, and he's been doing it so long. That's his spirit box. You're going to go close your eyes. You're never going to wake up, are you? You're going to fall asleep.
I hope not.
I'm that boring.
Cool.
No, I'm just. Hey, he sort of gave it to me the way it should be. That's
Right.
like your telephone. That's your own personal communication device. They know who's on this end of it, compared to if you pass it around to 13 different people on 5 different investigations. Who's supposed to know who's on the other end?
You don't. It's
Right.
like a party line.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, they don't want to communicate that way. They're still like you and me. You know what I'm saying? It's mutual respect. And, if you set your parameters and you have your right intention on using your piece of equipment, that's what it's supposed to be about, And there's people that, just like I said, with the spirit boxes on top of the hill that night, there's the bickering going on. Nobody knew, and if I was a ghost or spirit, I wouldn't want to talk to any of them either. Just by their responses, the bickering and, hey, this happens to every group that comes up here. I'm tired of this crap. I'm going to go somewhere else. Go find me in the woods, and they take off. They still have their minds, and they still can make choices, especially after they cross.
Yes.
So they have the opportunity to go ahead and choose who they want to try to communicate with too. So that's where that is. I'm with Ghost Research Society with Dale. I've been with him now for, I think this is like 6 years, 6 or 7. I'm also with Shadowhunters Paranormal, which is up by the border where I live. I'm off the Wisconsin border. And I'm with those guys, with Nick Sarlo, and we have 5 people. And Nick's the guy, the creator that does all the videos, and he's the guy with the camera. So, and now we're on Paraflix, and it's another great experience. We went ahead and we left. Was it one of our first years together? We had the opportunity to do a show at Great America for Halloween. So we went in, there were 4 of us, and we did a show for the month of October. Every Saturday night, we did 3 shows every Saturday night. The last show was at 10 o'clock and it went to midnight. Sometimes it went longer. And it was at this place that was called the Moose Lodge. And every night that we were there, they were lined up outside this place and down the walkway between all the amusement rides, waiting to get in. And then we would have 100 people. They would get the 100 people in the room, and they would close the doors, and that's when we started our show. And we would
What'd you do for the show?
We went ahead and we started out where we would introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about ourselves, talk about our investigation at the park, because we were the first people and only people to go in there and investigate on our own with nobody else in the park.
Mhm.
And we did it for 3 hours one night, and we filmed it all. And we had a lot of weird shit happen. Excuse my French, but I was taking IR shots with my camera, and I had it on a tripod, and I would fan cast different areas of the park, and I would catch shadow figures and things like that. And in the process of doing that, when I would be filming, two times it happened, different sections of the park, where somebody was walking up to me, and I'd stop with the camera, and I'd turn around. I thought it was one of the group, and I'd turn around and say hi to them, and there was nobody there. And they were definitely footsteps, so it was pretty freaky. And then we had other things that happened, images in the windows, again, on a shadow figure end of it. The main theater there, that's from the day it opened, it's had spirits staying there, ghosts, but two of them were spirits. One of them was the first day they opened that theater, the first performance, the end of the show, this woman got up out of her chair and just flopped over and died. and she is there.
Wow.
I had we had one psychic with us that's extremely good when we were doing the trying out for the show, and she was there. So we found out there were 4 different people there. Now the real crazy part, before I get too far, because I got to remember that I got to go back. We did a little thing. In part of our show, we would have equipment, and we would have like 6 pieces of equipment, and we would do a mini investigation with the people out of the audience.
Okay.
So they came up onto the stage on the chairs, and we would give them a piece of equipment that we already explained to them. And then I would go around and make sure they knew how to operate it and turn it off and on and everything. And then we would just do a little mini session. And things would happen in the lodge where we had a motion detector that would go off all the time, but nobody was near it. And that would freak people out. And then the things on the machines that would answer. We never did a Ouija board in there because we don't believe in it. But it was at that point where the part of the show with the equipment, when we were doing our audition, we had 6 people that worked at the show, and they were all behind us on the stage, and questions were being asked, and they wanted to know who this person was that was by them. And then the guy, or one of the psychic, went ahead and asked this question of this first guy. And he was one of the people, he was an actor. And he went ahead and he came up with this name. And we didn't know anything about the name, but it turned out that like 6 weeks before this guy that was an actor there at Great America went ahead and stepped out in front of a train and killed himself.
Wow.
Now, the psychic was talking about in the back of in the audience, or where all the seats are, in the back, there was this guy that had taken his t-shirt off, and he was waving it over the top of his head like a crazy man. So it turned out that who was talking to everybody that was on the stage that night was this guy.
Wow.
So it sort of caused, it was like the exhilaration, like when you get touched, and the energy goes right through you. And to the people that were up there that had no idea what they were experiencing, it was very, very, very overwhelming. But that is where that story lies, and it's not going to go any farther because we'll never go back there again. We'll never investigate there. But those people are still there.
They're not letting you, or you just don't want to go back, or what?
We're done. We're done with it, I believe.
Okay.
It's been 2-3 years, something like that. And it's very, very hard to do that kind of thing 3 times a night because it drains you.
That's a lot of work.
And it's like going into a big investigation because you have all the energy of all those people too.
Right. And that'll wear you down.
It's magnified, So that's where that was. With Dale, we had a lot of great investigations over the years. I've been to a lot of real neat places. Lately, I didn't make Gettysburg last year. I wanted to go, but I couldn't make it work. So maybe this year. But Shadow Hunters, we're going to do a couple things too. We're going to do a couple Paracons and things like that again, because it's great to meet everybody else.
Yeah, of course.
And your show, like my show, you get an opportunity of a lifetime just to have people that are from New Mexico or Arizona or California, Seattle. I'm gonna have a guy on my show. His name is Ross Allison. He runs Spooked in Seattle. Now my daughter's out there, and I've been out there twice already to see our grandkids in that. And every time I go out there, I get to do something like that, where I go on a haunted tour, or this next time it's going to be an investigation. Downtown Seattle, in the old section, where all the crap happened back, when they had all the ships and everything there.
Right.
And the Chinese people and all that stuff that you read about. That's where that all happened.
You got the Chinese, and then you've got the people being in the bars getting waylaid and being put to work on the ships.
Right. They actually would pretty much they would be in the brothel, and they walk out of the brothel and they'd go down this hallway, and all of a sudden the trap door would open and they'd end up in the basement, and they get like 6 or 8 of them, and they throw them on the ship. And a lot of them never made it off the ship.
Right.
That's how they live their life out. So, a lot of crazy stories, but I know today, my experiences with what I've been doing, are quite a bit different because of my journey myself, as far as, working with Scotty Rourke on my mediumship and on that end of it, and trying to go ahead and really make a better situation out of myself and what I do on an investigation. Things are coming along quite well, and I wish I was with him every day of the week, because he's such a great mentor, but it's not going to happen. So, I have my spirit guides, and I have my meditations, and I have my group from Psychics Unite, and it carries me and helps me understand things. And I don't know what else is going to happen after this, but I was always the guy that always wanted to have eyes on an investigation. You know what I mean? And, there were a lot of groups that didn't want you to have mediums, or they didn't have mediums all the time. You know what I mean? It had to be something bizarre for them to bring a medium in.
Right.
It's great to find out, to get an idea what you're up against before you get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
just
today.
just find out if the spirits are friendly or if they're downright hostile.
Or grumpy, just grumpy. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them just in a bad mood.
So we were at Randolph December 27th. I went over there with a couple people, and we joined Ghost Head Soup from out west, and Fields that I just mentioned earlier. What was his first name? Tim.
Tim?
The guy that was at the seance table.
Oh, Tim, I think, was it?
Was it Tim Fields?
I think.
Well,
No,
whoever it is, he was
yeah.
there too, and I got a chance to finally meet the guy. So we talked about that
Mr. Fields.
Mr. Fields, right? And it was really, really an eye-opening experience, to say the least. So we talked about that. The other guy that I brought up to you, you know, Jeff Resman, is another person that's, you know, quite a individual. This Bruce, you know who Bruce Halliday is?
No,
Big
I may have met him somewhere along the line.
ITC, you know, Spirit Box Communication, and he does a lot on Supernatural Links page, which is Katie Stafford and his wife Katie, and gives a lot of explanations about using the box and reasons for things happening with the box. You know, if you've been on an investigation for 40 minutes or something like that, and you're picking up a lot of responses, and then all of a sudden it goes dead.
Yes.
You know, he brings up the points of, you know, number one, how is the energy? How is your energy? You know, at that point that it seems to cut back, because you're the conduit. You know, you're the guy that's making this happen with the spirits,
right,
through the box, and
right.
All this stuff comes into play. So if you get the opportunity, and anybody that watches the show, if they are in the ITC and they want to go ahead and get a refresher course as far as bettering themselves on a location and using the box, it's not a bad thing. It's something that, to me, it's almost like a Bible. This holiday guy is just, and I'm going to have him on my show, and he's just another one of these guys that's just filled with all this great information. You know, the things that, you know, we don't even think about. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, we're going here tonight. Okay, what do I want to use? And it's okay. I wonder if they're going to be here tonight. And you never protect yourself. You don't do any of that. You walk into the building, you throw the box down, and you turn it on, and you start to talk. And you never think about what you're doing, because everybody around you is in such a hurry. They want to go, 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 go. And it's like,
right.
Wait a minute, we've got to do this the right way. And we've got to be respectful to the spirits.
Of course.
Because they are entirely worth it to build a relationship up with them, if you have that opportunity.
Well, they used to be human, and you got to treat them as such.
That's amazing. I'm on such a ride. You know, I don't know if it comes across that way or not, but, you know, I start talking about this stuff, and I could talk about it for a long time, just because of the things that have happened to me that I'm so enlightened about, you know. And I'm on this, I've had 2 awakenings now. And the second one dealt with the spirit box. And I believe, and I hope nobody else is listening to this, right? So I can say this to you. I want to talk to my guides on the spirit box on a daily basis.
Okay.
And when I heard all these guys, the Hulties and Staffords and Austin Menard, excuse me,
Is that your phone?
yeah, that's my ringer.
Interesting ringtone.
Austin Maynard, he's from Ohio too, and they're all box builders. They're all hacks. They build their own spirit boxes, and there's so many different ways to build one now, and there's so many different sweeps you can use, and it's amazing that now they have a sensor in them where they can zero in on the energy, on the EMF. They can zero in on it, and they hesitate on whatever station that is on the sweep to give it a little longer so they could pick up a word.
Okay.
And then it goes back and it stays there again for a little bit before it goes on. And I have 2 boxes that have it now. So it's just another little advancement in the guys that really know what they're doing with all that ITC, with all the boxes. And it's a pleasure to know these people, and it's a pleasure, with Supernatural Inc., and they have designs and technology pages, and they're always doing something different, and they always have different pieces of equipment. They have a static node. They call it a static node. So you have a EMF node that picks up EMF, correct? Well, these nodes pick up static electricity, which is the pure electricity. Everything in your building's EMF. What would be the static? That's your pure energy. That's you produce that energy. The spirits have that energy in them. And it comes across through EMF devices, but everything else in the building does too. Because that's all electromagnetic compared to static.
Right. Because the EMF meters, they pick up EMF from everything. Power lines outside, transformer outside, any kind of electrical connection inside the walls, especially if there's a loose connection somewhere, and it's almost always a loose connection somewhere, especially in an older building.
It's and
EMF EMF could cause you to have hallucinations, and you see things that aren't there if you got too much EMF in a room or a house.
That's the same thing that happened, I think, in the Demon House with with what's his name from Ghost Adventures. They said that one guy,
good old Zach.
When that place they tore down. I'm gonna grab a sip here. So that's pretty much where I'm at. I like to do more investigations, but
wouldn't we all? COVID kind of puts a kibosh on things. A lot of places aren't open, or they're open limited hours, and you hate to work with anybody because you don't want to give somebody something, and you don't want to catch something from somebody.
Well, like what I said earlier when I mentioned Waverly too, that's the same kind of a situation that we see where, the best thing to do to help those people get Waverly back from this historical society people. They have a lawsuit to keep the owners away from it.
Wow.
And the best way to solve that is so they don't do any business. If they don't do any business, they're gonna back off, and this should go back to the owners. And there's going to be a big court case that's coming up and all that too. But And that's that Denise and Ernie Pack. That's Pac-Man Paranormal. And they
Okay.
were the ones they helped run the tours and the investigations at Waverly.
Okay.
And they've been on, quite a few shows. They were on Nick's show the other night and talked about that all on there. So this phone is going to be driving me crazy.
Good.
I'm gonna turn it off.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm kind of staying clear of the Waverly because I don't know anybody involved. And I've never been to Waverly and probably never will because I don't have a team here. It's just me. And no matter who owns it, it's not worth paying the money to go do a paranormal investigation there by myself. To say nothing of very expensive to go in there by yourself, paying full price for a team. And then with fake knees, I can't go up and downstairs too much. So
Oh wow.
what am I going to do? Just manage to walk to one floor and do one floor for one night? That's just someplace I'll never be unless I go in there with a team and can kind of run the base station and maybe journey up to a floor or two for a few minutes. That's all I can do.
How far are you from Southern Illinois?
Put it this way, it takes to drive nonstop from where I live. It takes about 12 hours to drive to Chicago. So about half that for Southern Illinois. So about maybe 6, 7 hours.
Because, Crawford County, Southern Illinois, that's where Jason Snyder is, with an I, not a Y.
Right.
The other Jason Snyder's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But that would be somebody you'd contact if you ever wanted to go that direction. And, you've got Iowa. So you got Farrar School. You got the Biloxi ex-murder house.
Well, here I've got the Allen House that's been on TV several times. Most haunted, privately owned residences in the country. It's only 30 miles from my front door. I can literally get in my car driving the speed limit. I do have a little hot rod, so I rarely go the speed limit, but I can get there in less than 30 minutes to their front door.
So how do you have you don't have anybody around that would go with you?
No. I live outside. The introduction kind of says it all. I live in a place called Cane Creek Township, and township is kind of in quotation marks. There's about on my street, where a lot of the people live, there's about 14 or 15 of us on this street. One street over where the cemetery is, a lot of it's farmland around the cemetery. There's one church over there across the street from the cemetery. And Cane Creek Township has maybe 50 people living in the whole place. It's a suburb of Star City, which is the county seat. And Star City only has less than 2,300 people.
So do those people...
One grocery store.
One grocery store.
One grocery store.
So it's not a good thing, you're telling me, that to go ahead and put a big wanted poster up, like in the grocery store, looking for paranormal investigators to help you.
No, I've got a neighbor across the street who wants to burn me at the stake because she thinks paranormal investigators only talk to demons because there's no such thing as ghosts. This is Southern Arkansas. This is the Bible Belt.
Okay.
And this place was settled by a lot of people who fled the New Orleans area in southern Louisiana to get away from Catholicism. So they have a tradition of anti-Catholicism, and if you remember that Catholics pretty much believe in purgatory,
Yeah.
and the non-Catholics do not. And without purgatory, where are ghosts? Where do they come? That's why they say there's just no such thing as ghosts in their churches. And this is a big church complex, like the middle of the Bible Belt, and there's only one other person in this area even remotely interested in the paranormal. I'm still trying to figure him out. He comes from one of the more prominent families, and he says he wants to work with me doing something, but then I don't hear from him for 3 or 4 months. So, I don't know. He said he's going to check out the show. So if you're watching, call me. He said he wanted to do something. So let's go. There is some Civil War battlefields here close by.
Wow.
Yes, we're not a huge number of people, nothing like Gettysburg, but there were several battles. There was a couple of them just 50, 60 miles away, hour drive, that had massacres. Because if you remember your Civil War, a lot of Southern soldiers, Confederates, were always not going to take black Union soldiers prisoner. And they were trying to get there were some wagon trains that were stealing things from Confederates' houses here in southern Arkansas, which was held by the Confederacy. Northern Arkansas, including Little Rock, was held by the Union. And they were raiding houses. So, of course, the Confederate Army came in to stop them, and found out that the wagon train was mostly black Union soldiers driving the wagons. So even the ones that surrendered got shot. And then there was a place where the Confederates were having a stand, and the same black units that were involved in the massacre before came in and didn't take any white Confederate prisoners. Even the ones that surrendered were shot as revenge. So you do have that kind of dark complexity to it. And it was an interesting battle. It started in Little Rock as a campaign, came south close to the Confederate capital, but the Confederates stopped them from going into the Confederate capital of Arkansas. And then they started with the wagon trains and a couple of battles there. The Confederates got their supplies, so the Union had no supplies. And then they started retreating back up north, divided their forces. One went back to Little Rock, one went to Pine Bluff, which is also held by the Union. It was basically a running battle for 2 or 3 weeks. Wow. And I've been on a tour of all the major fields involved in that, and that was interesting, to say the least. But what I'm going to do is it's 8 o'clock. We're halfway. Before we get started on something new, I want to talk about when we get back. We got to sell some stuff here. We can talk about that subject you were saying you want to talk a little bit about, that new thing that you're into.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that when we get back. In the meantime, like I said, it's time to sell some stuff. So we're going to go into commercial break halfway through the show.
I'm going to run upstairs. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. We'll see you when you get back.
Okay.
Here we go.
Warning, the
Next
following
commercial.
video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Rochester Winter Parafest is back, March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. Come say hi to Naked and Afraid celebrities Melanie Elizabeth and Trent Nielsen, Haunted Case Files Jack Kenna, Monster Quest Steve Coles, and more. This event has it all: paranormal investigators, UFO researchers, Bigfoot researchers, and even photo opportunities for the kids with Buddy the Bigfoot. Oh, okay, adults too. Come on down and get a tattoo from Ink Master Tony DeVille. There are psychic gallery and individual readings, as well as radio personalities, authors, jewelry, makeup artists, and so much more. It's only $15 per person, and children under 10 are free. March 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2022. For more information, go to WLFE-DB.com. Yes, Winter Parafest is back. Valley Oak Event Center, Geneseo, New York, next to Denny's.
Try again, buddy. Try again. Yay! Okay. Oh yeah, good job. Oh.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.
Okay, welcome back to Southern Fried Paranormal, part of the WLFE network. I'm going to flip this picture up real quick that shows the guest for the Rochester Paracon coming in March. This is a rather large Paracon. It's in the New York area, Rochester, New York. And you can see they have a lot of guests. I know that's really small, but to get everybody in, you got to have a really small print. Of course, you and I can look around the banner here like this. Hi. But they're going to have a lot of people there. And this will be something to see in March. Of course, they call it a Winter Paracon in March. Now down here, by the middle of March, we're in the middle of spring. We got flowers blooming down here, and we got some moderate 70-degree days about that time. So right now we're in the middle of winter. It's cold here. I'm sitting here with a blanket in my lap. But anyway, look into it. $15. That's a lot of people to see for $15. Down here, the Paracon in Arkansas has been canceled the last 2 years because of COVID. And I have not been in contact with them if they're going to try to have one this fall or not. I imagine they're just kind of waiting for right now, you don't want to have anything down here. COVID's a mess. But you don't want to get sick. You don't want to get the flu. You don't want to break an arm because they're almost fighting over hospital beds here. Because when I was in the emergency room back just before Christmas Eve and just before New Year's Eve, they were telling other hospitals that wanted to send them people to Pine Bluff from Little Rock. The doctors were telling them, don't send them here. We have no place to put them. We have no beds.
Wow.
So right now it's probably not the time to contact the people about a Paracon, even though the Paracon will not be until October. That's their standard time for having it. So I'm not sure what's going to go on with them. I got to be in contact with them. I'm hoping that I can contact them in a couple of months, and they'll give me a promo video, and I'll be able to throw it up too, and maybe get some interest locally in a local Paracon instead of one way up in Rochester that I'll never get to because I've never been to the state of New York and don't plan to. That's too far for me to hike.
Now that would also give you the opportunity to possibly come up with some people to help you too.
Yes, it would. Normally there's some paranormal groups there, and at least give me somebody to work with. Right now, the only active groups is a brother team. There's two brothers. They're not interested in working with anybody else, and I can't say I blame them. If you're happy with who you have, and you don't want to work with anybody, that's you. And more power to you. Do it the way you want to do it. All about the paranormal unity thing, but a lot of paranormal unity things not talking bad about other people. And I'm not going to say anything bad about somebody who says our group is closed. And there's a group in Little Rock that says exactly that. They got their 4 or 5 people. They said, we don't want to get any bigger. We like our investigations with 3 to 5 people, and that's the way we like it. More power to you. Have fun.
Wow.
But anyway, that's how I feel about people with closed groups. And that's about the only 2 active groups here. There's one lady, I call her a young lady. I can't remember her name right now. She's a friend of Wonder Hussey, which is Sarah Jane. I cannot pronounce her last name. Out west, she actually lives in Death Valley. She just moved from Vegas to Death Valley. Would you believe somebody actually moved to Death Valley from Vegas?
There's quite a few people that are all in Nevada that have moved from different locations that are all part of that same group I think you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're unbelievable.
Yes, it's unbelievable what goes on out there. Wonder Hussey she makes her living off her YouTube channel. She's got that many listeners. She's making quite a bit of money. I'm not going to quote numbers. I've kind of heard from YouTube what she makes. I'm not going to quote it here, but she's making a fair living supporting herself from her YouTube channel, and goes in places you and I will never see. So a lot of it is ghost towns, some places where I'd love to follow her around in those places at night. And while she's sleeping or roasting marshmallows over a fire, of course, you and I'd have some paranormal equipment turned on. We're going to have some fun.
Right.
Her channel is amazing. If you want to look it up, it's on YouTube. Look up Wonder Hussey. That's what she calls herself, Wonder Hussey. She's got a beautiful personality. She's a beautiful lady. She's a former. She's worked in cabarets and she's the old Jello wrestling in the casinos out there. And she used to pose around for photos in the Vegas showgirl outfit. But anyway, if you got a chance, check her channel out on YouTube. Anyways, you gave me a little bit of information about something that you're doing, you're getting into, and I'd love to hear more about it.
Okay. I started doing this back when we were out at Gettysburg. And the reason that I clamped onto this so tightly was because of the fact of all the contamination that happened with open spirit box sessions. I had seen it numerous locations where we would go that would always end up the same way, where people would start to bicker with each other over supposedly what they had heard, you know. And you can't do that when you're recording those sessions and things like that. So there's a place that's called the Stanley Hotel out in Estes Park. And there's a couple gentlemen that worked out there basically as tour guides. There were paranormal people that did the tours in the Stanley, and they also had shows that they did. They had a band, and both of them ended up coming, how could you say, east, and they got involved with the Haunted Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, which is run by Greg and Dana Newkirk.
Okay.
And when they came out, they had a whole thing on YouTube. You can watch all their first videos that they did of how they came about with their method. And there are certain people that are more sensitive to doing this than others, that are capable of picking up things through the headphones. And what it's called the Estes method. And it was Connor Randall and Carl Pfeiffer were the two guys from the Estes, or from the Stanley.
What is their name of their YouTube channel so people can find it?
If you just go to the Stanley Hotel,
okay,
and you go to the paranormal, that should be up there. I don't remember it. You know, this is quite a few years back when I went ahead and did that kind of research, but there's about 6 or 7 videos, and some of them are really cool.
Okay.
And one of the guys, Connor Randall, was one of the ones that he was more sensitive. He had more of an ability to go ahead and be a good conduit than his partner. So that's why he always ended up. And what they do is they would use the headphones. They would use a blinder, and that's what, like this here.
Okay.
And you put it over your head, and it's sight deprivation, and then you got sound deprivation. And you turn your spirit box on, and you have it hooked up to your headphones. And what you do is you put it on a sweep. I use an FM sweep. I use it backwards, and I use it at about 200. And that sort of eliminates a lot of the possibilities of words coming through when you're going in reverse mode, unless that's how they're communicating.
Right.
Which can possibly happen too. So I started doing this, and I started up here in town, and we have a historical society up here in our town. And I have a friend that was on the board, and we would go in there and investigate. And we would do an Estes session in there. We started out at first just doing things like, I use an Eddie Plus a lot, voice recorder, K2, things like that. And we actually had quite a few times that we had activity constantly, and we had people that actually came through the equipment to verify who they were. And there were people that had died, that one of them founded the rescue squad back in the day. And his name was Tony, and Tony would come right through. And then some days we'd go in there and nothing would happen with any of the gear. And I brought up to my friend, and his name is Dan. and he's a real big guy. And I said to him this time nothing was happening, and he says, why is nothing happening? And I says, maybe they don't really have that kind of energy, So I says, he says, what are those? I says, these are dowsing rods. And he took the dowsing rods in his hands, and he's sitting there, and I'm asking the questions. And, after you give them the limitate or how you want them to go, yes and no, and, that kind of thing, and point in the direction of this or that, and they were working. And we said, well, then we ran out of time. It's time to go. And he's holding the rods out like this. And I says, well, we're going to go now. And all of a sudden those rods, yes is this way, right? They start going reverse, and they're spinning like helicopter blades. They're going around. And he was sitting there with his hands out, and his eyes are real big in his head like that. And he's going, what is going on? And I said, I started laughing. And he's, he puts him down. And he says, what the heck was that? I says, that was commonly referred to as a very emphatic no. They didn't want us to go. So, and at this time, we started doing Estes there. And I would do it, and two other people in the group, Nick Sarlo and Sharon, they would do it too. And then they just got bored with it because there wasn't a lot of things happening. What they told you to do is when you had the sweep on, you would just concentrate on what you're hearing and looking for complete words, not parts of words. You don't assume anything. It's a word that you hear totally, and you would speak that word out. So we did this. I've got paper down here. I have of note paper that I've done sessions with that's about this thick, that I was thinking of in the end, whenever I get the time, to go ahead and take that and somehow make a composite of all those words and see if there's anything there that makes, how many times is this word used, blah, 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 that kind of thing, and try to come up with some sort of idea of what was really trying to transpire. So I continued to do it. We had sessions. We would do shows at certain places. We had a place in town that was called the Terminus Theater, and we would go to this place, and we would have a night where we would have people come in. They pay to come in, and we would do investigations with these people. We would take them around because there were spirits in this place. So they could actually experience this, and the meters would go off and everything. It was like they had a lot of fun. And I would do a session up on the stage, and if it was either me or one of the other guys, like Nick would do one. And one night I was doing the session, and one of the other guys in the group was recording the words on a piece of paper, writing them down as I was saying them. And this is the first time it happened to me, but I started to channel. I had no idea how I did it. It happened, and the words were literally coming to me, and I was speaking the words. And they weren't actually coming through the radio. They weren't coming from the spirit box. They were coming from my headphones. So I was saying these words, and it got crazy. The words that I was saying, he got done, and this guy was one of the kids that was shot at the big shooting at Northern Illinois University now it was about 15 years ago. There were like 8 kids killed there.
Okay.
And he was one of them that should have been dead.
Wow.
But the words that I was saying, not even knowing anything about him like that, came out, and he got done. And I looked at him. I says, Pat, are you okay? He says, I got to go outside. And I followed him out to see if he was okay. And he says, you know what you were saying all dealt with what happened to me at school. And I said, you got to be kidding. And he pulled the paper up and he pointed out these words, and it all had to do with the shooting. So he was, and then it happened to me again up in southern Wisconsin up here. And we did another event at a tavern up here, and we had like 30 people that paid to do a hunt in there. And the same thing happened with two people at the bar. I went ahead and spoke two words that these two girls were sitting at the bar, and one of them worked there. And she used to have a password with her old girlfriend. Her girlfriend died like a year before this. And
Wow.
every time they would go into the bar, they would have like a code word. And that was like, this is the last shot. Okay, we're going home. But they wouldn't say that. They would use this code word, and the other one would know what was going on. And I spoke the code word. And after I spoke the code word, I called the girl's name out.
Really?
So these two literally got up. The one was crying, and the other one was like going, this is nuts. And they left the event even before they really did the investigation.
Wow.
And it was like, and this is all with the Estes. Now we've gotten to the point where we've been doing doubles, where we two separate spirit boxes. Everything's, but you're together. And what happens is we did it at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Old South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. It was recorded on tape by Jason Snyder from down in Southern Illinois. And 2/3 of the way through the session with the words and everything, we were actually bantering back and forth at each other and had no idea we were doing it. And everybody that was around that was watching it thought it was wild. We were calling each other names and saying things and back and forth. And she'd say one thing, I'd say, you say black, I say white, all that kind of stuff. And it was all coming out that way.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, there is something to it. You know, there's really definitely something to it. Like I said, you have to be the right conduit. You know, you have to have the right intention when you start the session. You can't have anything negative, nothing negative at all, you know, and that's a good policy to have for investigations too, period. No matter where you are, where you're going, you know, you have a plan of attack. Well, your plan of attack starts out with what? Your intention. Mm-hmm. It starts out with your protection. It starts out with the plan of who's going to use what gear where and how you're going to cover the building and when you're going to rotate.
Yes.
But there's some groups, oh, no. We want everybody together. And it's like, okay, there's certain places that does work at.
Yes. I've been to places where the more the merrier. You actually got more, interaction with a big group than a small group.
Right.
But I've seen it the reverse, where you've got too many people and the spirits are called it overwhelmed or just didn't want to talk to that bigger group of people, and you get little to nothing.
The spirits are all up in the corners, up by the ceiling. They're not coming down for anybody. They've seen it, they've done it, and it just gets to be so boring and chaotic for them. They've got to be going nuts. at some places. And you wonder why
Yeah,
the
well,
energy changes,
yes.
you know?
Like, say, a Bobby Mackey's, I've heard where the interaction there just goes up and down, where the only way they got a lot of interaction is because one group went in there and wasn't getting anything, and they were started trying to intimidate and yell and demand of the spirits, which is everything you and I are taught not to do.
Provoking is
And
no
the next
good.
group that come in there, yeah, they were provoking, and they still wasn't getting anything. So they walked out a little bit angry. But then when the next group walked in there on an investigation, they got jumped on literally by a bunch of angry spirits.
Oh.
So that's what I've heard about Bobby Mackey's. If you go in there, if you're not, unless you're behind a group that's provoking, you're not going to get anything. And what you get after a provoking group has gone in there, you don't want anyway. So it's kind of like what you're talking about. And Bobby Mackey's is a perfect example for what I'm hearing is going on down there. That's why I have no plans to go there.
I don't either. I've never been there. I don't really care to go there, but you know, there's a lot of people that do, without a doubt.
Yes.
You know, it's not part of my bucket list. I don't care.
No, it's not. It's not my bucket list at all. I've got a couple of bucket places. Now I hit several places in New Orleans, and there's a couple places I want to hit. The wife wants to stay at the Lafitte Hotel there, and you know that which is convenient. She wants to go there, and there is a spirit that hangs around the staircase there. A child fell down the stairs, was injured, wasn't killed. But later she died in one of the rooms in the hotel. And the mother was so distraught that she locked herself in the room, and she apparently literally starved to death because she wouldn't come out of the room. Wouldn't drink water, wouldn't eat. And it's apparently right across the street from the Lafitte bar, which I have actually investigated a little bit of the main floor. I was not allowed to go upstairs into the office area. But there is some interaction there if you can do what you say and get on the good side of the spirits. And with just one person in there, if you can catch them on a slow night, you can get some interaction there.
There's some people that are on the Paranormal United Network.
Okay.
Who do Paranormal 101. And one of the gentlemen that's on there is from Louisiana. And
Okay.
he always talks about giving gifts or tokens of gratitude to the spirits before and after their visit, so they know that, you know, they're okay, they're good people, just
Yes.
like you would with a lot of the American Indian places and the places in Canada. I have a couple places on Lake of the Woods in Ontario, and I've been doing Lake of the Woods for probably 35 years, fishing muskies. And there's a place called Painted Rock, and it's figures that are painted on this rock that they say is like 1,600 years old.
What do they call it? Pictographs?
Yeah. And we would go there. First time we went, this is an interesting story because how it went down. But we were there, and my partner was taking pictures, and I was sitting there taking a break because we were between fishing spots. And we're looking at it, and, you know, nobody's around. And all of a sudden, here comes this old canoe with this old Indian and this little guy. And they come up, and the guy the older Indian starts talking about the rock and, why it's there, and that if we want to go ahead and have good fishing, what we have to do is we have to give the spirit, the Indians, we have to give them a gift. And it's usually tobacco. And the guy that was with me, that was fishing with me, had cigarettes. So I said, give me one of them cigarettes, and we broke it, put it over, and we put it into the water. And then we turned around to say something to the Indian. They weren't there.
Oh, wow.
They were gone.
Wow.
And
That's
both of us got
that's
goosebumps.
interesting.
Both of us got
I
goosebumps.
bet.
And it was like, holy crap. There wasn't anywhere they could hide. Where the hell did
There's
they
a lot
go?
of people who would say, yeah, there's a lot of people that would have run back to their car screaming.
No, I have other friends that are up in Wisconsin, and on the Chippewa flowage, that's a big body of water. And I've fished that area there too for a long time. The guides up there are good close friends of mine because I've been in the fishing business for a long time too. And they talk about Ghost Island, which is an island on the Chippewa flowage, where there's people that have reported seeing a chief, an Indian chief with all the feathers, on a horse riding over the tops of the trees on this island.
Wow.
Two friends of mine, and I approached him on this because I had heard about this picture, because he was one of the guys that was in the boat when the other guy took the picture. And
Okay.
supposedly the picture is still up there, and it shows this same thing. And it was like, wow, and it's all over, I think we're very, very fortunate to be at this stage of our game and our lives and understand the things that we do and how open-minded we are and the hearts that we have compared to the people that just shut themselves off and live an existence that has no merit to it at all. Where I'm going with that? I mean, it's like,
Yes.
I wouldn't want to do it any differently.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to change a whole lot. I like where I ended up. I like where I am.
There's
And I'm happy with that.
There's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of words,
Mm-hmm.
that come, and it's out of the fact that it's not really to be hurtful. It's because of the time that isn't being shared. So, how you look at it, it's like, well, it is what it is. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. Why would I change now?
Yeah. Exactly. We're both too old to change.
Well,
I've done some crazy stuff. Some of it recently.
there ain't nothing wrong with that one.
Yeah. To go back to what you were saying, giving gifts to the spirits. The reason I was able to be so successful in New Orleans is because I went to Marie Laveau's tomb and left, she was a hairdresser by trade. And I left her a gift of a hair tie. You can't tell from here. I kind of look almost bald in this lighting, but you can see how long my ponytail is here. It goes off camera. And I have it tied in a hair tie. So I was sitting there on the only way you can get in that cemetery now is public tour. because they've had so many people desecrating it, trying to paint her tomb. And I just went in there and just popped the hair tie out and put it there by the tomb as a gift. And she actually, kind of acted as a spirit guide a little bit in there, because I got on her good side, and it's kind of apparent from dealing with her that my wife may be related to her.
Wow.
That's the reason we live down here in Arkansas. Is her family, her mother and father were raised nearby, within 20 miles of where I'm sitting, in different cities. One of them in this county, one of them just over the line in the next county. So, like I said, a lot of people here, both white and black, came up from New Orleans, in the southern Louisiana area. My father-in-law, who's passed now, his family was in what do they call that? Lake Shore, or it's a city got nailed a couple of times by hurricanes in the last year or so, over in western southern Louisiana. And so that's where they're from, kind of southern Louisiana, in that area. So
Lake
it
Charles.
is what, Lake Charles. Thank you very much. Thank you lots. So he's got some family there, and they came from, more or less central in southern Louisiana, front the countryside. So that's kind of where Marie Laveau was, just outside of New Orleans. So it is quite possible that my wife is related to her. There is a slight resemblance, and it could explain why she is polite to me, nice to me, and lets me kind of do in New Orleans whatever I want to do. And usually I have no trouble contacting spirits down there at all.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's a place where I have had personally a lot of success, and look forward to going down there again.
You ought to try it. You ought to try it. You ought to try the Estes and have your wife there and see how it works.
Well, the last time I was down there, we went to the Andrew Jackson Hotel.
Okay.
And everybody's heard the Andrew Jackson Hotel and the reasons why it's haunted. That's a whole other show. I'm not going to go in that big explanation. But we actually had a spirit in the room who would interact with her while I was investigating other rooms in the hotel. She was watching, and I'll throw a name out there. She was binge watching Game of Thrones. And the spirit was actually there in the room, would say hi, Gail, to her. And she would say hi to the spirit. And he would sit there on the bed with her, watching Game of Thrones on her phone.
Holy crap.
Yes.
I bet you that was exciting, huh?
Yes. And I'm in other sections of the hotel doing a little investigating. There she is watching Game of Thrones with the spirit in our hotel room.
Were you really having a lot of activity too?
Yes. Ran into one guy. I was there with other people, and one guy went in one of the more haunted rooms and started screaming inside the room and ran out. And he recorded a serious growl.
Oh boy.
He actually got that on recording, and I heard it. Of course, some people say, well, that's easily faked. And yes, it was. I was not in the room when he supposedly heard it. But that's got to take him at his word that he didn't, make a growl himself and recorded it. But it didn't sound like him to me. And he was lying and creating evidence, or he really got a serious growl in the room. I've had name your meter. I've had mail meters go off. Of course, you're in an active hotel with a lot of electricity, so I could explain a mail and especially a K2. But I've also got interactive voices on various types of ghost boxes there at the Jackson, and some shadow figures Also investigated a slave quarters down there while I was down there at the Jackson Hotel, and got in a conversation with somebody. And I was there with a tour, and the tour guide left 3/4 of the tour with me because she knew I was good at this. And she took a few people upstairs, and they got nothing upstairs. They came back down, and I was in a full-blown conversation with the spirit that hangs around downstairs. And she said, I haven't heard your voice in several years. It's nice to talk to you. You want to talk to me? And he came back and said, you talk too much.
Oh, crap.
Told the tour guide this, and she said, I talk too much. She was flabbergasted. What are you going to say to that when you're a tour guide and a spirit says that from 25 people there in the room, and where she was just freely talking, hey, how are you doing? How'd you get here? The basic questions. I said, how many people are in the room? Name the correct number. Had everybody in the room counting people. So how many people's in here? And the spirit named the number correctly.
Wow.
And named a couple of names that were there. Had called me by name as I was talking to him. And I was calling him by name, because I knew, I'd been there before. So yes, I had some rather incredible evidence. And I was in the old, okay, we still got time. I was in the old wax museum that's now closed in New Orleans, another trip. And I was there with a few people on an old elevator. The museum used to be it had a big wedding set up upstairs. Downstairs was all wax museum. And it used to be a brewery. Not during Prohibition, it was a brewery for decades. And they actually made soft drinks, during Prohibition. But this elevator the brewery was finished upstairs. So they built a car elevator where they just drive the truck on the end of the elevator, raise it up, load it, and they'd lower it down to street level and just drive out the sidewalk out making their deliveries.
Wow.
We were in that elevator, and this guy was sitting there, and his K2 would not stop when it was by him. And he said, this has got to be you, because he wouldn't stop blinking. So he held it over by me and it stopped. He moved from the spot he was standing at, it stopped. He moved his cell phone, gave it to his fiance, and it kept going. So it wasn't his cell phone, because she kind of moved away from him. So it wasn't his cell phone activated. He thought it was my cell phone, put it by my cell phone. Nothing going on. He said, who is by me? I said, well, excuse me, can you give me your name? Because I didn't know the guy's name. And he said, Josh. I said, okay. Who is standing by Josh? And a lady came in and said, Frank is. I said, Frank, are you standing by Josh? Yes. Just that quickly. I thought Josh was going to bolt and leave his fiancée with me. But he realized if he went out the door, this was a very large room. This is a brewery, upstairs of a brewery, that was emptied out for parties, weddings, etc., that he would have to run literally 25 to 30 yards, make a hard right turn, run another 20, 25 yards to get to the door, to get to the stairwell. And the only light in this entire area was the exit sign over the stairwell.
Oh, man.
So he would have had to have run close to 50 yards in darkness where you couldn't see a hand in front of your face. The stairwell was only lit by the red exit sign to find anybody, the people who were there watching, and they were not they were in and out from downstairs. They were playing computer games while I was entertaining the entire tour because they had me there. They said, just follow him. But he thought better of running. One girl had her spirit guide there, like you were referring to earlier, and she went out because the spirits there said, you have to go. You have to go. So she went out, stood outside in the darkness for about 15 minutes, and her friend said, can she come back in? And the spirit said, yes, but he has to stay outside. He said, you mean you don't want her spirit guide in here? Yes. So she kind of told the spirit guide to stay outside, and she came with her spirit guide.
Wow.
So that's the kind of things I've run into in New Orleans. New Orleans is an incredible place. It's a conduit. It's absolutely amazing. If you ever get a chance to go down there, go. Of course, if you ever get a chance to go down there, let me know. I'll go with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about Vegas next.
Vegas is an interesting place. The old Riviera was absolutely amazing. And I was creeped out at the, walking the halls at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, where you're by yourself on the on the main floor. There's a few people that are gambling, hitting the stuff. But you get up in the hotel, there was at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's just nothing. You're there by yourself. And they're dimly lit. And that was just crazy. I actually rode up the elevator with a prostitute. And we pressed the same floor. She said, Are you the guy that's in a room so-and-so? Because if you are, I'm the person that's coming to see you. I said, no, that's not my room number, not even close. And she said, well, I wish you were.
Oh, boy.
And we got off the elevator, and she had to go right. I went left to go to our separate rooms. And she was looking back at me, said, oh, I wish I could come down to see you as soon as I'm done over here. And what was possessing her at that point? Here she was going to make a living, and then she's going to come down to my room for free. And I said, I don't think my wife would appreciate that at all.
Strange town.
This is a strange town. And the Riviera, before they tore it down, of course, was a very strange and rather haunted place. I was glad I got the opportunity to stay there.
Yeah, we were in the Monte Carlo when that's how long ago it was. It just opened. So that was across from New York, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So that was a long time ago. But,
yeah, this was quite a while back. Obviously, the Riviera's been torn down, 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
This
There's
was
a lot
back in 2002, I believe, when I was
There's a lot of different energy now that the families are going there too.
Yes, and of course with COVID, it's kind of where is everybody energy? They've had their ups and downs, with the COVID things. Before Omni, they were kind of getting up, and places were reopening, but then after the Omni version hit of COVID, it places are closing up. A lot of the restaurants are closed, and after a couple of years of restaurants being closed, are they going to even bother reopening again?
Well,
I don't know. Now's the time to, if you wanted to buy a restaurant or something, in Vegas, now's the time to go do it.
Well,
So, we had a nice restaurant here, Steakhouse, and they were open about 8-10 months and closed.
this
What
is
is that?
this is a Nanocom S or Nanocom, and this is a spirit box from Supernatural Inc. And I'm not going to turn it
Okay.
on. Well, here, just so
Okay.
you can. I don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah, here very well.
But anyway, if it was dark, everything lights up on it, and
Oh, okay.
this is one of the ones that has that chip inside it for the sweeps and picking up the EMF and sort of concentrating on it. And it has other parts where it eliminates more of the sweep noise. So all you do is pick up the words. They do
Okay.
a machine that's called an ink box that does that same thing too. So I just got this. I had my another one of these that I traded in for this one, and I had to pay the difference. But that's one of those machines. It's quite cool. They just said something too. I'm going to shut down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.
Okay,
Now-
Greg, we got about 8 minutes. So,
Okay.
what was that you had in your hand? So another kind of ghost box?
Yeah, this is another one that they do. These are called
Okay.
retros, and this is like a mini ink box. So the
Oh, okay.
computer, the circuitry inside it eliminates a lot of that. You don't have to go ahead and move the dial around manually. You just literally bring it up from there. You bring it up a skosh, and when you turn it on, what it does is it automatically sweeps the dial,
Okay.
AM and FM. You can choose
cool.
AM or FM. And then it also has how could you say it? It has that button again that concentrates on the sweep. I can't do this very well. This button right here, and you can turn that button on, and it sort of accentuates where you're at, so that when it does pick up that EMF and concentrates on that one on the sweep, it gets to there and it hesitates, even if you're going at a faster speed. So you'd have an extra so long to pick up a complete word. That's what that does. And it eliminates most of the noise interference on it.
And the way you like to use these is you put the blindfold on.
You can do that too with them.
And instead of having it just blaring out for everybody to hear, you've got it on your headphones.
Right.
And you're sitting there listening to it with no visual input. And that's the only thing you can hear.
That's the way
you listen to it.
All hearing and audible and sight deprivation, and it sort of puts you in almost like a tunnel.
Right.
So you're more aware of what's going on. And, there's certain people that have more of a concentration on it than others. And those are the ones that, should be the ones that use it more than others.
Yes.
I have one last story as we got a couple minutes. We were out at the Farrar School in Iowa, and it was me and Mike Wright from GRS. And we were doing a double Estes. And about a week before this, in a session that I was doing, above the white noise, I picked up an entirely different line of noise. When we did it at Farrar School, the same thing happened again. It was a tick, 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 tick above the white noise. If you remember, if you watched any of the space programs when they have all the satellites or whatever, those ones that were going out to Mars and
Right.
Jupiter and Pluto, they always talk about space noise,
Right.
the noise that space makes.
Okay.
We're hearing that. It freaks Michael out to the point where he dumps the session. He comes out. He's done. His eyes are bugging out of his head.
Wow.
I hear this. So this is sort of making it almost like, are we really talking to aliens?
I've had that theory put out by other people that are we talking to spirits, or sometimes are we talking to aliens,
Or are they one and the same?
or are they one and the same? Some people say, what's a Bigfoot? It could be an interdimensional being. That's why all their pictures are blurry, because they're kind of between dimensions. That's why they may only leave one or two footprints and disappear.
And they run like hell.
Yeah. And they could flop over to another dimension real quick. And if you catch them while they're going through a portal or whatever, you're going to get a very blurry picture.
So the end of this conversation, I go on a Monday night and I watch this round table of ITC people. And I ask them that same question. Do you think this is aliens? And they all looked at each other and they said, you know who Frank Sumption is? And I said, yes. I says, he wrote the book Out of the Box. Frank made the first spirit box, and he made it to talk to aliens. And we're using it to talk to spirits.
Yes.
What
right.
a fitting way to end this program, huh?
All right. Well, I want to end it one other way. I want you to express where people can listen to you in the Shadow Hour, when your show is on, where it's on, and any website, any YouTube channel you want to talk about. Now's the time to promote it.
Greg Koss, the name of the show is the Shadow Hour. It's on the Shadowhunters Paranormal Investigations and Events page on Facebook. We do Facebook Live. Everything else used to go to YouTube. This year, no, because now we're involved with Paraflix, which is that channel of different paranormal groups that present shows to the channel, so you can watch what we do all during the year. And they're all filmed by our groups too. It's a great group. It's another one of those Patreon groups, and I think it costs something like $6.98 a month, or something like $4 or whatever it is. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's another one of those things where you can pick up all sorts of groups, plus other groups that we know.
All right. We'll leave it there, Greg.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure seeing you, Len, and talking to you.
And
it's been great to be on your show. Yep.
And it's going to be fun to be on yours Friday week. And if you're not from the South, Friday week is not tomorrow. It's next Friday.
Thank you very much for having me on, Len. It's been awesome.
So I really appreciate you being here.
I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to talk. See you next week.
I'm really appreciative and grateful. Have a great weekend.
You too, Len. Bye-bye.
All right, that's going to end our show for this week. I appreciate Greg Cross for coming on here and being with us. And we're going to send it to the outro. All right, Bones, take it away. Good night to you.
Thanks for watching our show.
Be sure to tune in to next week as once again we journey way down south into Bayou Country for another heaping portion of Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman and Bones. Make sure to like, share, and follow. Y'all come back now. You hear?